Much, Janet. It is now 9 minutes before and 8 here on AM Live on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. The farm workers and the unions in the Western Cape have agreed to go ahead with a planned national strike tomorrow if their demands are not met by today. There have been ongoing negotiations between Agri-SA, unions and government, but no deal has been brokered. Agri-SA says the workers' demand for a minimum wage of 150 Rand a day is unrealistic and not sustainable for the farming sector. For more on this then, let's start with Mr. Tony Ehrenreich, COSATU Secretary in the Western Cape. Mr. Ehrenreich, nice talking to you again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. The latest, please, in relation to the talks. What do you know?
We are on the verge of an agreement in the Western Cape, but this agreement excludes Agri South Africa, who's been opposed to a deal. But in discussions with many of the farming associations representing about 80% of produce in the Western Cape, we're on the verge of a deal. Unfortunately, Agri South Africa's national leadership came down to the Western Cape yesterday and are trying to block the deal. They're really blocking the deal because they're the main architects of apartheid-style industrial relations on farms and want to perpetuate that for short-term gain against the national interest.
All right.
This is really sad, and we're calling on government to intervene urgently to ensure that we avert the strike on Tuesday.
If you may, please just give me the details of this deal that you are likely to conclude.
The deal says that we're going to put in place a new industrial relations system that understands that farm workers and their unions are an important part of the partnership needed to grow agriculture. Then it says we've got to work with government. There are a number of support and supply side measures that government can bring to agriculture to grow the Cape, and government's committed to do that if we come on board with fixing the industrial relations issues. And then there's the question of raising the minimums. All farmers, including Agri-SA, agrees we must raise the minimums, but they're hiding behind the Department of Labour or the Minister of Labour statement to say next year only. Next year only is not going to cut it. Many of the farmers want to increase it now to ensure that we avert the strike on Tuesday. Those discussions are going well, but we're scared Agri South Africa is going to jeopardize that.
And you're suggesting that farmers in the Western Cape are in agreement with yourselves and they're willing to raise the minimums?
80% of the farmers want to raise the minimums. They want to have an agreement. They want to have a new kind of industrial relations era on farms. But Agri South Africa is the stumbling block at the moment. The national leadership has come to town last night, and they're trying to scuttle the deal to make sure it doesn't go ahead.
Is it likely that the deal may be signed before tomorrow?
I think there's a lot more pragmatic farmers in the Western Cape. You realize the apartheid-style practices have no more place in our future. We've got to change. We've got to build the partnerships. And so we're hopeful that with the intervention of government, a number of ministers are intervening now because they feel that Agri South Africa can't jeopardize the whole of the farming sector for their short-term personal interest. And we're hopeful that we can avert the strike. We don't want the same problems we had 2 weeks ago, and we don't want to have a circumstance where we could have a crisis where the conflict that's inherent in the kind of industrial relations boils over to open warfare because already there are right-wing armies of these agri-style farmers who have killed one worker and are threatening to take violent action against other workers who want to protest.
Tony Ehrenreich, let me thank you very much and quickly move over to Elise van der Westhuizen, who's Senior Manager of Labour Relations at Agri-SA. Elise, good morning to you. You stand accused of wanting to scuttle and scupper the deal likely to be reached between farmers and farm workers in the Western Cape.
It's unfortunate that COSATU, who has not been part of any negotiations in the past, can be so arrogant and talk about militant and apartheid-style farmers. They want to reach a deal. Just to remind you that only the Minister of Labour can increase a minimum wage, and that's by law. Any agreements reached by COSATU and farmers are on actual wages, not minimums. And that's the part that COSATU can't understand. Agri-SA was part of negotiations to try and reach an agreement on a way to solve the problems, not to increase minimum wages. That's the work of the minister.
All right, just let's clarify issues. Again, from Mr. Ehrenreich, it appears as if there were talks going on in the Western Cape, and then Agri-SA joined the talks yesterday. What happened?
The talks has continued for quite a while. It was COSATU that rejected Agri-SA's proposal to look at figures of sustainability and affordability of a minimum wage in the sector.
Mm-hmm.
But COSATU rejected that. Why did they reject that? Because from the start, they agreed to an unrealistic date of the 4th of December to go on strike again. They knew that it's not possible for the minister to get a new minimum wage into place because law doesn't allow that.
But Elise, again, Tony is saying that 80% of the farmers in the Western Cape are quite happy to raise the minimum at this point. What do you know about that?
We agreed in the past that negotiations must take place on farm level between workers and farmers. If that's the case on a farm level, that is wonderful because it is on actual wages, not minimum wages.
And you would support the farmers that want to raise the wages at an enterprise level?
We also encourage our farmers to pay more than the minimum wage where it is possible.
Okay.
So we encourage negotiations on farm level.
Right. Again, let me just get your assessment of where we are and what's likely to happen tomorrow. Of course, there's been that 4th of December deadline set, and all indications, in fact, if you look at reports, are suggesting that unless a deal is reached today, there will be a strike. What do you know?
No, we agree. That is the reports. We are very worried about organisation that's inciting farm workers to transgress the rule of law, and such organisations will be held liable for any damages to property which occur as a result of unruly, violent or criminal behaviour.
Now, Mr. Ehrenreich again said that he's quite hopeful that a deal may be reached before the 4th of December, which is tomorrow. Are you hopeful that some announcement will be made that will ensure that there's no strike tomorrow?
Like I said, the minimum wage can only be adjusted within the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, and that cannot happen today.
So are you suggesting that there is absolutely no announcement that we should expect?
No, the minister can't announce any adjustment to the minimum wages. If there's agreement with on actual wages being paid to workers on farm level, we will be very glad about that. But that also goes about sustainability of the sector and affordability.
All right. Elise van der Veste is Senior Manager of Labour Relations at Agri SA. Thank you very much for your time.
There's nothing